Trisha Mullin. Today we have Kyley here. She was a previous guest of ours back in May on the 29th. She was 27 then. She suffered from gastroparesis and Barden syndrome. How do you say it, hon? Barter syndrome. Since then, she's discovered she also has a form of a seizure disorder, possibly a form of epilepsy. She's been through quite a bit since our last visit. So, hello, let's welcome you on, Kyley. How are you?
I'm good today.
That's very good to hear.
How are you?
I'm well. I kind of want to say, with utmost respect, you are such a warrior. You've been through so much. For those of you who have not listened to our previous podcast, you definitely should. She's been through quite a bit in her past, but I kind of want her today to just start off from May of 2021. What happened in May? Kind of give a little brief of the little bit of the last podcast we did, a little bit of an update, and then kind of work your way into from May till now.
All right, so when we last spoke, I actually was getting ready to go on vacation to see one of my best friends.
Yep.
Which she's my best friend / sister.
Okay.
And her new baby that I love dearly.
Awesome.
So I went out there, visited. I felt fine, but so what happened is I do the home infusing for my Barter syndrome. I do IV potassium and IV magnesium.
Okay.
And so what happened was there was an issue with delivery. They never sent it on time, and so I was late on my meds.
Alrighty. And you were out of town, of course, at this point, because if I recall, you had to catch a flight to your friend.
Yeah.
And you had to get approved. You had to go through all these things to make sure that everything was in order, which you did. Every check, every T. So it being late shouldn't have been an issue.
No.
But it was.
I did everything that I was supposed to. I made sure I counted every saline flush I was going to use, every alcohol pad I was going to end up using. I even packed extra 2 boxes just to be safe. Extra caps for my port.
So what happened when they didn't show up? What do you kind of do next? What are your options at this point? You're out of town, you're far from home, your doctor's nowhere near. What did you do?
So my only option was taking, which, with GP, we don't digest stuff right.
Correct.
So and with my Barter syndrome also, I also don't hold on to potassium right.
Correct.
So what happened is I ended up doing extra potassium. I did 5 pills. I did it instead of me doing only 5 times a day. I upped it to 7 times a day.
And that helped you?
No, but it held it up enough to where as long as I didn't have the GP symptoms, I would have been good.
Okay.
But, with GP, we always have our flare-ups.
Correct. Ugh, those suck.
Yeah. So it was one of the longest flares I had before. So I'm not sure if it was the flight or the different altitude or if I'm being on the ground to up in the air. I don't know.
Okay.
But something triggered something in my body and my body acted up.
And then where did that land you?
It ended up me being TMI, but with GP, everybody that is listening, we always go in and out of the bathroom.
So it upped the amount of usage for the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay.
So when that happened is I took the initiative of taking extra PO by mouth.
Okay.
Since I didn't have the IV dosage that I needed.
Okay.
So I did, normally nobody's on 5 pills 5 times a day
No.
of potassium. But I ended up having to take 5 pills 7 times a day.
Wow.
To try to counteract the body, a different altitude, all that.
Okay.
With the GP flare-ups.
So after that, were you able to hold over till you were able to get like medical help?
Yeah, until I was able to, me and my best friend, which she's like my sister, she ended up making sure we had extra salt, because when I'm losing potassium, it's not a good thing, because then I get dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
So we made sure we had every Powerade, every Gatorade, body armor, all that we made sure we had.
Alrighty.
To counteract to not having the IV dosage.
All right. So at this point, once you kind of get it to hold back over and you get back to home, what is your next step when you go back in? What happens at that point?
I came home. So that night when I got picked up from the airport, I went to my uncle's house. Because it was a real late flight and I needed to get and lay down and go to sleep. And as it is, it's like an hour drive back home to his house.
Right. But I'm saying, like, when you got back into the doctor, what was your next medical step? What was your next plan?
I was going to go straight to the doctor the next day and have him up it to change the dosing.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't even make it. I went home. It was a weekend. It was like a Friday night when I came home.
Okay.
So, of course, Saturday and Sunday, everything's closed.
Yeah, offices where doctors are. Nope, it's not 7 days, only 5.
So, I couldn't go into the doctor's office like I wanted to.
Right, so you had to wait. And so what happened to where you didn't make it? Let's kind of
So, I came home. Before I came home, I started having TMI, bathroom issues.
Right, we just went over that.
Well, it was to the point, love, where it was uncontrollable.
Oh, like on yourself type of thing. With no, okay.
Where I was having accidents.
Okay.
To the point where I couldn't even make it to the bathroom. I had to put TMI, but a pull-up on.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't hold.
Okay.
And when I got there, my grandmother called 911 right away.
Okay.
She waited maybe a few hours, but I wasn't able to eat, drink, or anything.
Okay.
I tried to drink, but you know how that is.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't drink, if you force it, you throw up.
Right away.
Yeah.
So
I pushed it a little bit and I threw up.
What happened when you got to the hospital? What was the diagnosis at that point? What were they saying your conditions were?
So when I got there, it was the normal GP flare-up. I was in a massive GP flare. Massive, like the worst one I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
So when they did that, they also found out that my heart stopped.
They found out what?
Like right when
Your
I got
heart,
to the
your
hospital,
heart stopped, is what you said.
my heart stopped within 2 hours of me being there.
And at that point, did they tell you had like a stroke or some form of a heart attack?
So I was, as soon as I got out, I was on, my heart stopped and I was right on the vent. And I was on the vent for about a week.
Okay.
So when I got out of it, of course, you're confused, you're scared, you're panicking. And the only thing I remember is one thing that always goes in my brain, is that one of the nurses I've known my whole life, almost, and one of the doctors I knew. I don't remember names because of all that crap.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is they came up to me when I was in the ICU. And they came and they found out I was off the bed. They're like, Kyley. I'm like, what? They're like, I have never seen you look so fine when you first got there, and you drastically changed in your hot stop. They said it was so hard for us to put in a tube, like a vent.
Yes.
Put you on the vent. But they said if we didn't, you wouldn't have made it. It was pretty bad.
I remember speaking to you after everything, having lots of phone conversations. I recall how bad it was. And for those of you who don't know, she had to relearn how to talk. She had to relearn how to eat, walk, like everything. And at this point, you hadn't had your first seizure yet, correct?
No.
Right. At this point, you're just recovering from being in a coma and through a ventilator. I forget how long. I think you said like it was several days.
So I was on the vent. I remember I came off the vent on my mom's birthday, which was July something. I'm not sure dates.
Correct.
So the best present she got was me off of the vent.
And when did you come back from your trip?
So I came back from my trip, so I went in June, or like around there. My birthday's in August.
Mm-hmm.
So I went for the 4th of July week.
Okay.
Around there. In Missouri, they have a different day for fireworks.
Okay.
So I think it was like around July 4th.
Okay.
I got there a little before, so I spent throughout July 4th with them.
And when's your mom's birthday again?
It's July 30th.
So you spent most of July basically in the coma at that time, from the time you got back until your mom's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for those of you just trying to get a timeline for the audience to understand a little bit of, grasp what is going on. And then once you wake up, you recover. It takes, I remember, extreme amount of time. I remember having conversations where just to get out a sentence was very hard. Now you're almost basically back to where you were with communication and talking. And I'm very proud of you. I want to give you a little applaud on that because that is very hard to do.
Thank you so much.
And let's work our way into what happened after that visit. When you get discharged, you go home. When do you start to have your first seizure?
Okay, so what happened is I was home for a good amount of time. So I'm trying to think of the idea.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the exact timeline, but just like an around the bout. So you get discharged from rehabilitation in the hospital around when? When do you get to go home from the coma? And
it was after my birthday. So my birthday was August 7th. So it was after that.
Okay. So in the
So
middle
I'm thinking
of
maybe
August, maybe the end of August, you get sent home.
yes.
So August goes on, June, July, August, September. So then September, what happens in the month of September?
So in September, um, I ended up having a flare up of GP,
Hmm.
and my Barter syndrome started crashing.
Okay.
Um, so when I went in, I was okay. Didn't feel nothing different other than nausea, ridiculous amount of nausea, which
That's kind of normal,
normal
so you
going right
kind of don't
away.
think anything second of it because it's kind of the same as using the bathroom or going to sleep. Like you vomit on a daily. So to say that was out of the norm would be like odd. So the fact, so you probably didn't see anything wrong. So after the vomiting, what happened next?
So after the vomiting, I ended up not being able to keep no food down, no drinks.
Hmm.
So I'm like, my mom's like, no, you need to go in. So I went in because, of course, the line wasn't working. You need the line to do the IV potassium and everything.
Okay.
And the feeding tube was acting up also.
So what did they do to fix the act up?
They ended up having to put in, so in the hospital they have some kind of pill. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it's supposed to break down any kind of particles inside of the tube.
Okay. So they thought there was a backup or a buildup or a clog, and that they were going to go and send this pill to kind of like clog the drains, basically, and, get rid of anything that's backed up and built up. Almost like a
Yeah,
laxative, but for the tube.
yeah,
Okay.
pretty
That is
much.
awesome. I've actually haven't heard of that, but I am hearing new things on a regular with GP, so I wonder, how did it work for you? Like did it work? Did it do what they said or
So the first week, it kept happening. So I think it's the kind of formula I'm on. I'm on the formulas. So Osmolite 1.5.
So I had a thought just now. I know
What?
that when my mother-in-law, who was also a GP patient, who's also had the feeding tube, she has potassium
Mm-hmm.
level issues at times, and we had to cut her feeding tube amount in half or get it diluted because the amount of potassium. Have you looked into, because you're getting feeding tubes potassium and regular potassium through IV infusions, have you looked into how that's affecting your actual digestive system?
No, I never even thought of that.
And have you looked into the overdose possibility of potassium that caused the seizures?
I never even thought of that either.
I would reach
Because with
out to whoever prescribes your potassium and ask them to do blood panels consistently for a couple months and
yeah,
monitor. And if your levels are high, there's a lot of consequences for there's a lot of bad issues that can happen when you have high potassium. You can even overdose and die. So
yeah,
go into cardiac arrest, which is kind of like what you just described, even a coma.
yeah. And what they found out that day when they did my levels,
Your
so
potassium was sky high, I'm sure, because you also upped your
no,
dose. Or it was depleted?
it was depleted. So normally potassium's supposed to be 3.5 is normal
Mm-hmm.
for anybody. Mine was into the point of not being able to be read other than without the serum.
But you were also having constant runs, so it was just going right through you, not
Yes.
sticking. So there's many different things there, which is why you definitely need to get it evaluated because it sounds like if you monitored your potassium levels more thoroughly, you might see a pattern. And if you don't, good. But if you do, I would start there, because it sounds like there's a lot of potassium issues, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of negative things that can go if it's high and negative things that can happen if it's low. And that's why it's important to have a good levels, which is what they're trying to do. But when you are switching brands of feeding and stuff like that, your potassium doctor needs to like be aware working with your GP doctor for your
Yeah.
Bartisan syndromes.
The problem is, so they go to the same hospital. Both the GP doctor, the new one that I just see in the hospital, GI.
And when did you recently get that doctor? Because I know before in our last podcast back in May, you were looking for a new doctor in Massachusetts.
I'm still looking. So what happened was when I was in the hospital, they always give you a doctor, a GI doctor, as long as you're having GI symptoms at that moment.
Okay.
So, of course, if you have diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, all that requires you to see a GI doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And with GP, we have belly pain.
Yes. So did this new GP doctor start working with the Bartisan doctor? You said they were at the same hospital. So did they start to actually communicate, and are they now?
So right now they are working together. And before they were also.
Okay. Well,
they're trying to figure out what kind of medical treatment we need to do.
Well, yeah. Well, in order to do that, you need to know the underlying cause, which is what they're still looking for. Why all of those things happen, and was it a fluke? Because then we don't need to change anything, or is this the new regular? Because then we need to change it. So they're doing process of elimination. So while they're doing it, you might as well add the opinion of the potassium. It won't hurt for them to do some blood work. And if you're already getting blood drawn on a regular, it's just a little bit more blood taken, but if you're already giving.
They were actually going to be looking before I was on the vent.
Okay.
We were going to end up looking to find there's a doctor in Boston. I don't know a name, nothing like that. But there is somebody works with the same thing around what I have, but he doesn't deal with the actual condition.
Alrighty.
So, he works with different conditions, but it's all regarding the potassium.
So it would be like a potassium specialist that deals with different diseases that cause the potassium to do fluke things.
Yes.
Okay.
And one thing I was thinking, I don't know, it probably won't be this year, but I've been wanting to do, maybe I can do something with you, but I want to do more about my Bartter syndrome.
I do. If you want to discuss that, we're definitely interested to learn about that. I'm interested in all diseases, not just like GP. So definitely. And if you are going to see that specialist or we're trying to before everything happened, I would get back on that goal, because it sounds like if you add that specialist to the team, between the two doctors you have now and that third doctor, you might just get things in the right direction, where the potassium doctor specialist one could possibly figure out an underlying cause or send you to another specialist who's brighter than he is, who could talk with more rare things if he can't find something,
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about doing, like you said, genetic testing.
Genetic testing is important as well, but at this point, with the diseases that you're discussing, as far as Bartter syndrome, I don't know about that one. I can't say that. But for GP and epilepsies and things, there is no, even if you do the genetic testing, science hasn't caught up to the answer yet. So the answer could be in your genetics, but they just don't know what they're fully looking for yet. So until they piece that together, I don't know if genetics is going to help you quite yet.
with that.
Now, as far as Barter syndrome goes, it could. I have no idea, no lie.
And I'm just hoping that when me and you are doing these podcasts about the Barter syndrome and GP, it's bringing more awareness for everybody that might not know what is wrong with them.
There are so many people out there that don't understand how they got GP or have secondary issues, who like seizures as well, or heart attacks as well, or infections, or multiple secondary issues that they just don't understand how. And learning those underlying causes is very important. So I definitely hope that more awareness comes. Now, yesterday I did a podcast with a lady named Tanya Smith, and today she's on her way to Louisiana, I believe is what it was, to see a specialist who specializes in finding out the underlying cause of rare GP cases. And she also has seizures, and she also has GP as well. And she just recently got the J tube put in from being malnutritioned. So if anyone hasn't been following her story, I definitely would check that out. And when she gets back from Louisiana, we will be doing like another update with her to see if they figured out the underlying cause of her GP for rare cases. Because I definitely think that you and Tanya should link up, because you guys have so many similarities within your cases that it wouldn't hurt to like get to talk to someone and relate with someone who is physically dealing with the current things that you are. Around the same time, she was in the hospital and on a vent just like you were, the same exact time. Like, you guys are kind of going through the same thing at the same exact time in life. It's kind of, coincidence, I guess you could say. Who knows? But you guys should definitely link up. Are you still there?
Yeah, I wanted to throw something out. So just in case Tanya is listening, because I know she always listens to the podcast.
Definitely.
If you would like, message me on Facebook through Trisha, and maybe me and you can link up and maybe do some kind of, like me and Trisha were talking about, some kind of podcast with both of us.
Yes, I definitely think that the two of you really should.
Willing and wanting to do something like that with you. If you are wanting to, just ask Trisha how to get a hold of me on Facebook, and we can talk and get something done with that.
Definitely. I will exchange that contact info. So at this point, let's kind of get back to original topic, because I know you and I often get sidetracked.
Yes.
After your hospital visit and all of that, and then the first seizure comes forward, let's talk about your seizures, because we didn't really touch bases on that. When did your seizures first start, and how often are you having them, and why are you having them? What have they told you? So between September and October, the last 7 weeks or so, she's been dealing with new conditions, which let's kind of let you talk about that.
All right. So when I got home from being in the hospital with the vent, I was doing pretty good, doing everything I needed to do, take all my meds, everything. Well, I was in the hospital because I was having a GP flare-up at that time also. And thank God I was in the hospital when it happened, because that's where I had my first seizure, is when I was in the hospital during that flare-up, and also my electrolyte imbalance.
Okay.
So what they said is when I had it, they could tell on the heart, because I was on the heart monitor.
Mm-hmm.
They could tell my heart was doing something funny.
Okay.
Well, one of them come in, the nurses that I know personally came in and started seeing me seizing. And of course, she's freaking out, calling for someone to come in to help her.
Correct.
And she pressed not the code button, but like
You pull that
the
string.
emergency button.
Yeah, that emergency string and stuff, so they come running instead of the front desk button.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they all came running, and before they even got to the door, she's like, "Get lorazepam, get all this. Kyley sees it. Run. Don't even call the doctor. We called the code. They're gonna come. Go get the lorazepam, because if you don't, she's gonna seize for a long time."
So she took care of everything and handled it. And then once you woke up from that, what did they tell you the reason for that seizure was?
So right after I woke up from that, I was confused. I'm like, "What do you mean?" She says, "Kyley, you just had, how do you feel?" I said, "I'm exhausted." She says, "Kyley, you just had a major seizure in front of us." I said, "No, I didn't. Like, you know how we are. We try to push it under the mat, or
Not address it, like try to, no way. I get you. Like brush
minimize it.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Good word.
Purposely.
Right, not purposely, but I feel where you're coming from.
We just don't want to deal with something else.
Correct.
And as it is, everybody that knows what each of us go through daily, we don't want to end up having another condition thrown at us.
Not at all.
As it is. We have enough.
So dealing with that, I'm sure, obviously is very hard to swallow. Once you got into the realization of that did happen and this is real, what did they say happened? Like, did they give you an underlying cause? I know right away they're not going to say a form of epilepsy at this point, but what did they say? Did they think it was a med issue? Did they have any type of answers for you medically?
So medically, they ended up checking potassium right away. They threw down labs, checked for infection, the whole 9
The works.
The works. They checked for an infection. There was no infection. They checked for electrolyte imbalance. The levels were low, but it wasn't low enough to cause seizing.
Okay.
Because it was like 2.5. My normal is anywhere from 2.9 and 2.4.
Okay, so
around that area. I don't know exactly the pinpoint.
Right, but it
can even be 3.4 as long as I do extra meds.
Okay.
And so what happened is we did all that, and that day I woke up, I'm like, I felt weird that day before they even started seizing. I felt off. I told her, I'm like, I feel just very tired, very lethargic. I just don't feel normal. She's like, Kyley, you don't have your color. I'm like, there's something wrong. She's like, your levels were okay. They were 2.4. Normally, 3 something is normal. 3.5. 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
And so that day we were it was like 2.2. And as you know, normally people would know anywhere from 3 and below, someone would get admitted.
Okay.
Because your heart can definitely stop when you're depleting your electrolytes.
So at this point, once discovering that the labs came back and that your levels were still within those range, did they ever say what it was that the seizures were from? And how many more did you have after that?
So what happened is I started thinking maybe it was from when I was on the vent. Something could have messed in the brain.
Okay.
Just like, how stress could cause something imbalanced, or if you're dehydrated, your heart can act up.
Okay.
I wondered if I was just dehydrated and all that, because I wasn't able to keep any fluids down because I was in a flare-up also. So it was just a bunch of different little things that ended up piling up and making everything connect.
Okay. So my next question would be, that's your theory. So, which is a good theory. I'm very interested in that theory. But I'm also still interested to hear, I know that you've had like a seizure last night, we spoke, and I know you've had a couple more in between that. How many seizures altogether since that first one have you had, would you say?
All right, so I'm going to estimate because
Right,
I'm
just
not
an
good
estimate.
at tracking them fully, which I need to be, because
You can start
when
a
I go to
diary
my
or like a
appointment,
daily
they're gonna
log.
ask.
You can start a daily log or like a diary. You can write it down like every
Yeah,
time.
that's what I was thinking. I actually have a page on Facebook. I will end up giving it to you. I haven't updated it in a long time,
Okay.
but I'm wanting to get back into it.
Okay.
Especially because of the trauma of me not having like my memory.
Correct.
I need to do that.
Yes, I even
so
message
I can
myself
have
on
better
Facebook.
track.
I message myself. Like if you type yourself into Facebook Messenger, you can actually message yourself on Facebook. And I kind of just put all my notes there, and I'll go back through my own chat with myself of different links or different, procedures or things or stuff like that. But you still did not actually answer the question. How many seizures would you estimate? 5, 10, 20? How many would you say around about have you had literally in the last 7 weeks?
All right, so I'm gonna estimate because I'm not good at like tracking them, which I have to get better on that. I would say at least maybe 6 to 7.
Okay. And what type of seizures are they? Are they like grand mal?
So what someone told me is I'm having before I had seizures before, but it was just staring seizures,
which are daydream seizures.
Yep.
And then now you.
And then I started them getting worse, where I'm now shaking.
Okay.
Convulsing with it.
Alrighty. So like your whole body, or just a side of your body, a half a body?
I'm not fully sure, but when I talked to someone, they said it was my full body.
So a grand mal seizure. Okay. So they went from simple ones to severe ones within a short period of time. And do they go off and on like a pattern? Or are you out with the daydream ones and only grand mal now?
So I'm out with, so I'm getting dangerous, like small ones and medium size. I'm not shaking, so that's a plus that I know of.
And aren't you medicated currently now for seizures?
Yes, I am.
So the medication's keeping them to where they're not as severe, but they're still showing through a little bit.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm actually thinking about when I make my appointment to see the neurologist, I'm thinking of asking them if they want to, when it gets closer to Our Lady friend, if they want to up the seizure meds a little bit, so it gives it more of a leverage where I'm not going to have a seizure when Our Lady friend comes.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed hormonal, when that happens, our body acts up.
It sure does.
It says something to our brain, and our brain acts up. I don't know if I'm hitting the nail.
No, you hit it right. your whole body does go through changes. So I definitely could see how that could be linked in a way, or how your body could, during that change, have issues. Even when the weather changes, people with seizures, their seizures change, and with the weather, in the seasons. So definitely. But if you're still having small seizures or seizures on the medication, then your doctor should be aware. And
they might want to end up
well,
changing the
it's
med
not
or
about
adding another med to
changing.
it.
It's not about changing it. What they'll most likely do is monitor your levels, and maybe up one or lower one, or change the. There's a liquid form, there's a pill form, there's time release. They might still use the same medication, but a different form of it, and a different, like a liquid or an IV one, or a pill, or they might up the amount times per day. My mother-in-law, who also had GP, had seizures, like I was telling you before, and I've taken care of her for many years, and the seizures definitely revolve all around your levels, and if anything is seeping through, then your levels need to be monitored and adjusted.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of medication is to eliminate them. So if they're not eliminated, then they need to be aware each time, and a phone call to their office should be made. And most of the time, hospital visits are a must when they happen, because sometimes those little ones are working their way up to a big one. So you got to definitely let them know what's going on, because this is a new condition for you. So I'm not really sure if you're aware of all of that. So if you weren't, definitely start implementing those things, because your doctors should know every time. Like, this isn't normal like GP. Like, if you vomit, we don't got to call them every time we vomit. So I don't got to call them every time I have a seizure. It was a small one. No, you definitely need to, you have to call them every time. If you...
I think I'm going to... Thank you for reminding me. I gotta call my doctor after we get off this call, and I'm gonna actually see if I can find a seizure specialist near me.
Yes, and your seizure specialist can also monitor that potassium level for you as well on a regular, while they're monitoring your medication level, because they're the one that's going to do a lot of blood work, and the potassium is important to them as well, because too much potassium can give you a seizure as well. So how your body is breaking down potassium, it sounds like you kind of just need to get all your doctors on the same page. Maybe you should call your Bartter syndrome doctor and your GP doctor and see if they have a neurologist that they work with, and that you can still stick with someone on their type of team or someone in their facility that they can like change notes back and forth with, and that they communicate with, because you'll get better care overall, because all of them are going to communicate, and that's kind of what you need right now, because if you don't, you're looking at everything as one by one, not as a group, and everything that you're dealing with is a group of issues, that everything goes hand in hand. If you don't do this, this will happen. If you do this, that will happen. So like, you're setting one off if you do this, and throwing the other one off if you do that. So you need all of them working together to give you the best treatment. But I definitely have been praying for you. Where is your follow-ups now? Like, who are you going to see? Because if you never found the doctor in Massachusetts, and you said you have some doctors, how far is your current, like, your doctors? What's your setup?
So I have my kidney doctor is actually local.
Okay.
It's not a funny story, but I met him when I was actually hospitalized one time, and I didn't have a great doctor before him.
Okay.
And I asked him, and I said, would you ever take me on as a patient? And he says, yes, I actually go to Fairhaven. He was starting. And I said, okay, so can you please do me a favor and have someone in the office make an appointment for me to see you? And that's when it started, and it's been quite a few years.
Okay. But...
And he's never had anybody with the Bartter syndrome before.
Okay. So what type of doctor are you looking then for in Massachusetts? I thought before it was a GP specialist, but it sounds like the GP specialist you have now has been helping you quite a bit. So why would you want to change?
No, the kidney The kidney doctor.
Oh, you're looking for a kidney
Yes,
specialist.
I actually do not have a GP specialist, really. My Barter syndrome doctor and the other doctor have been trying to talk to one of their colleagues that work in the GP, like GI connection.
Okay. So yeah,
Because
definitely you need a GP doctor and you definitely need a kidney doctor that's local. So if anybody who's listening is in the Massachusetts area and suffers from similar conditions and wants to reach out or send some info our way on who is good for that, we are definitely ready to seek different treatment, it sounds like. Yeah, at that point, I would start looking. And maybe you could get on Google and try to like see what is in that area and see if you maybe could find one that way. I know that's how I found most of my doctors. I, just call, see if they're accepting new patients, and then I go to the office, I feel it out. If I like them, I'll stay. If I don't, I'll see if they can give me a referral to, a more closer area or somebody who, like, if I don't, sometimes I don't like a male doctor, so sometimes I want a female doctor, and sometimes they just know the one. So it kind of works out, but I would start there. Other than that, I look forward to doing another follow-up with you and seeing what's going on with you in the future and how all of this is, what's the outcome and verdict, and see what they find out for your seizures and what the underlying cause is. I definitely think that there's more going on, and I can't wait to kind of crack the code, and figure out the underlying cause. Because once you do that, you can really start your full treatment plan of getting healthy.
Yeah. And, like, one good thing, even though gastroparesis is not a good condition, and I am going to strenuously say that, the only good part of it is that us, GP, we supporters, and people that have it, is the community that we built.
Correct.
Of amazing, caring, understanding people that we talk to daily or every so often. Is we all have to be there for each other.
Yes, I couldn't have said that better.
And, like, there's a lot of people out there that does not understand. They don't understand what we go through on a daily basis.
Nope. No, a lot of our friends and family sometimes are oblivious or don't understand why, like, you're so tired when you haven't done anything, or why this or why that, or I just cooked that food, why did you throw it up, or the work. So a lot of times I do hear, more often than not, that my friends or my family or my lover just doesn't get it. So that's kind of what drove me to do the podcast, is trying to, like, break down everyone's story so people can get it. Like, this is what it is, and you can't sugarcoat it. It's just, it is what it is.
And, like, one thing I was going to talk to you about afterwards.
Well,
it's not just doing GP.
Correct.
Have other conditions on there.
Well, I do actually do podcasts with other conditions. There are several. I kind of just take whoever comes my way type of thing, and whoever reaches out to me, or when I see someone that I feel like, might want some extra support, I might reach out to them. But I do all topics and all diseases, many, whatever comes my way. So definitely, but I would definitely like to do an update with you, and I want to thank you for coming on the show. I wanted to see if you wanted to give thanks and appreciation to anybody who's been there for you over the last couple months during your trials and tribulations, and give you, you want to give a shout out to anybody.
So, yes, there's actually a couple of people. You are one of them.
Aww.
I want to thank you especially, because even though you go through your stuff, you check on me.
Yes, I definitely care.
and I want to thank a few of the GPers that I talk to on a daily basis. Angelica and Sharon is the biggest people I want to thank. If it wasn't for GP, we wouldn't have had good people out there.
Yes, GP has brought me some very good friends, and good support system for, when I come across other GP fighters who understand the fight, whether they're there for me or I'm there for them. It's kind of it works both ways type of thing. So I definitely am thankful for the community of GP, for sure. And I look forward to our update with you. I'm so happy that you're doing so much better, though, because I just can recall a couple weeks ago when we were going to initially try this podcast, your vocal just wasn't at that level yet. You were still doing your speech therapy to get back to where you once were. And I really noticed between, then and now, how far you have really come. So I just want to give you your props on that, because that's very hard to deal with, and I couldn't even imagine. I was only looking at it as a friend, like from an outside perspective and a support system. I wasn't the one living it. So I definitely think that everything you've been through in the trials and tribulations, that you're going to be okay. You are definitely very strong. You are a fighter, and somehow or another you have been blessed with a guardian angel of some sort. The amount of things that you have been through medically are unbelievable.
And I want to thank you very much, Trisha, for letting me come back on the podcast.
Anytime. You're always welcome.
Being able to give everybody an update, and also to let people know we are there for each other. We care about each other. Even though people don't always talk to people, know that you have supporters out there in the GP community.
For sure. That is more important than anything. The GP community stands together by all means necessary at all times. And that is something that you don't find in every community. But somehow in the GP community, through all the trials and tribulations, these ladies and gentlemen just pulled together to make it happen.
And one thing I want to say is, us as GP community, we're a family. We might not talk to everybody daily. Just know we all care about each other, and we're always going to be there for each other no matter what.
Correct. So with that being said, I kind of want to unleash a surprise.
Wow, I'm excited.
So I have been discussing some stuff with you and some other people in regards to a community. Well, we already do have like a community, but like a kind of like a live session or like a podcast, not a different podcast, the same podcast, but like where we do like once a month where several different patients come on and we all just kind of have like a sit and chat, like a hangout podcast type of thing where we're just kind of talking about our experiences amongst each other and comparing notes or getting good information, like finding another patient in Massachusetts that might be able to direct you with better Massachusetts care, trying to find people that are local to you to help you, direct you on a better treatment plan, or just to like have someone who, like how Tanya is really close to similar case with you, to kind of like compare notes on your guys' case and just say like what you guys are doing differently, or what helped her, what helped you, or did you guys notice the same thing? Because you guys live, I think, in 2 different states, so it's different, but it's similar, very similar cases. So I want to get people like that together on one podcast or in like a group chat of some sort. I haven't really worked out all the T's yet, but it's been something I've been considering and working on, and I was starting to think that like the 13th of every month is when this would be aired on whatever platform we choose. I haven't really worked out all those details, but that's the surprise so far. I want to bring the community closer, and like where we're actually able to conversate with each other through Sprinkle Some Love with a Cause, where it's not just one-on-one with you and it's like multiple, where we could have group sessions, like a group night.
I I was actually going to be talking to you when we got off the podcast about some little things that I wanted to throw at you.
Well, definitely we can have a discussion after this. We can wrap this on up because this was actually just about the end anyways. So I want to thank you for coming on, and I look forward to seeing more of you in these support groups and many other activities that I know you and I will definitely be doing together in the future. How does that sound?
I actually am very excited, and I can't wait to see what the future brings for us, for both of us.
I agree. So until next time, everyone, thank you for joining us on Sprinkle Some Love with a Cause by Trisha Mullin. And our guest visitor today was Kyley. Have a good night.